Okay, Councilman Fry. I don't know if he's completely in yet. Let me check. Yep, he's in. Councilman Fry, we're doing attendance.
I thought it was 6. Yeah,
No,
but I thought it was 6:30 for the closed session and 7 o'clock for the email you sent me.
no, 6 o'clock. So I also today sent out the regular meeting agenda for Tuesday because I was required to send it out today.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go ahead and do attendance now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you messed my time up.
Oh, sorry about that. Councilman Fry is here.
Here.
Councilwoman Griffin, I think she just responded. Okay, she's trying to log in now. Councilwoman Burrow is not logged in yet. Councilwoman Robinette.
Here.
Mayor Knowles.
Here.
Councilwoman Lipka. We see her. She's still muted.
Here.
And then Councilwoman Jones.
Here.
All right, a quorum is present. We'll move on and have our Durham City Manager, Mr. Jeff Bloom, or do you want to give it straight to Lexi? All right, Lexi, I think that was a motion for you. If you would take us through our agenda.
Okay, so tonight we're starting with the Ferguson Special Business District. I believe that Douglas and Bob McGartland, and I thought I saw Jerry Knoll too, was on the call for tonight.
Can you give us a page number?
Yes, the page number, sorry, is
415, 416.
Yes.
Will you be sharing your screen, Lexi?
Yes, ma'am. Let me get that going. All right. Here. Host disabled. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Octavia?
Okay, I'm trying to see if I can, I didn't have mine up.
Hello? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, I'm in. Welcome.
I don't know if you can at least get started a little bit, Lexi. I don't want to hold you up, but I'm trying to get into the link now.
Okay. If everybody would go to page 415 in the work session binder, that is the detail that we have for the special business district for this fiscal year and for the forecast for this year, as well as the budget, proposed budget for 2021. This budget was proposed at $20,000, the amount of money that we had originally anticipated for the special business district. As we discussed previously, having moved the late payment date for business licenses to August due to the shutdown, we are anticipating having less revenues this fiscal year, as well as less revenues next fiscal year. So we're anticipating about $10,000 in business license revenue for this fiscal year and $15,000 in revenue for the 2021 budget year. I don't know, Karita or Bob, which one of you want to kind of go over I know you sent me a couple of attachments. One of them was a Word doc.
Yeah, I believe that within our board, I guess there's some confusion as to what's going on. I tried to clarify exactly what was going on with the moving of the dates and the decrease in revenue, but it seems to be some confusion there. But what we did, what I sent you was just a tentative outline. We did come to the conclusion that we're looking at, basically with such a small budget, we're looking at two main categories. More like an operational expense category that we'll break those items down in, as well as a special events community page as well. So we're looking at two categories with a budget for, I believe we have, and I don't want to pull up my screen because he just sent it over. We've been playing around with it. But let me ask this. Let me ask a clarity question. The budget report that I forward, I know you probably get a copy of it. It does not show what the available budget is monthly. The trial balance sheet does not show what our available balance is. Because I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly, because there seems to be some discrepancy.
Okay.
So for example, I'm looking at the trial balance through 6/30. So for example, in the special event for Street Fest and Northern Light, the $4,115.70. Has that been allocated? Is that line item currently zero?
That $4,115.70 is what has already been paid. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that has already been paid. Okay, and the same thing with the Northern Lights. So basically, it's up to, we as a board need to keep our own available balance as to what's going on. It's not going to show up in the trial balance.
No, the trial balance is just going to show what's already been expended.
Okay. I just want to get some clarification, because everyone's numbers are a little bit different, and no one's doing a really good job in keeping up with that. Okay, so with that being said, we're working off of a $10,000 budget through June 30th, and we're also working within the $15,000 for the upcoming budget year. We're looking at two main categories, and then having those items, line items within those categories. Not really looking to, I believe we're adding, maybe just adding something along the lines of assisting some of the businesses with some support. I'm not sure how that support is going to look, but during the pandemic, assisting them with some type of support, whether that be workshops or other types of assistance that can be offered. But we're still work in progress.
So can I back up just a little bit with regards to our forwarding balance? Because my understanding, Lexi, is we had originally been approved for $28,500 fiscal year 2019. And we spent $11,131 there, and we're projecting to spend another $2,500 by the end of June. That's what I sent, Karita sent you this afternoon. So that's leaving a balance of almost $15,000 on our end, but you're saying we only have 10. So that's where I'd like some clarification.
Okay. So the way the budget is done, we project what our anticipated revenues are for the following year. So we projected that you would get your normal about $20,000, which is about normal for you all for the special business district. And you petitioned the board to give you an extra $8,500 to do additional projects. But because we have moved our business license due date, because normally the business licenses are due now.
Right.
But we've moved that date to August 1st, because so many businesses were shut down. We didn't want them to feel like they were having enough trouble making ends meet, and then we want them to pay their business license fees, which is based on your gross revenue from the previous year. And so that could be a significant difference to what you're collecting right now. So that was postponed until August, which means that not as many people will pay their business license this fiscal year like they normally did.
Okay. So the budget then is based off of what, the budget last July is based off of what we collect this year?
Yes, because we base, everything is on our projected revenues for this current year. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's just like our budget here in City Hall. Our budget is based off of what we anticipate collecting this fiscal year.
All right. So then, are you saying, Lexi, that we have $10,000 left in our account? It would be at the end of June 30th, 2020?
No,
No.
no. What I'm saying is that your business license revenue is projected to be only $10,000 this fiscal year, as opposed to the $20,000, which is what we had originally anticipated.
Okay, so we're not going to have any money moving forward.
We're anticipating that you're going to collect money again next year. Another $15,000 is what we're anticipating for next year.
So how much money do we have for a budget to work with?
Next year, you have $15,000.
Okay.
So Lexi, is the only reason they have $10,000, I mean, if we had not moved the license date to August, if it had stayed like it is now, would their budget be closer to the 20,000 that they're used to?
Possibly, yes. I mean,
So-
it would, if we didn't have the pandemic and we didn't have the shutdown, then yes, it would still be the 20, we would still anticipate the 20,000. It's because we had the shutdown that's why our forecast changed so severely.
So the dates moved to August, and the license due for 2020, people, the business owners have the opportunity to pay that into August, which is into our next fiscal year.
Correct.
But that being said, wouldn't that be additional funds on top of the anticipated business license fees that they would collect within the fiscal year of 2020 and 2021 during the normal time? So if you go back to maintaining the due date for 2021 and the anticipated amount on the business license is 20,000, but then now you've got an additional license fee income coming in because you extended this year's license fee into 2021, wouldn't their budget actually be more than 20,000 and not less than?
Yes, except for business licenses based on gross receipts for the previous calendar year. So when they renew in 2021, it's based on total gross receipts for this calendar year, for calendar year 2020, with the shutdown and limited openings for most businesses and within the city because of social distancing requirements. We anticipate revenues to be down for 2019 overall. So since the licenses are based on those revenues, we anticipate those revenues to be down, which would then make what the special business district fee would be lower as well for the next fiscal year.
So is the
10,000 for next year.
So is the fee that they pay on top of, they pay that additional fee in their business district, their special business fee?
Yes.
So is that fee not a flat rate? Is that a fee based on sales dollars? Or because if it's a flat rate, then that would not change.
No, it's half of the business license fee, which is the business license fee is based on gross receipts. The special business district license portion is half of what that business license fee is, up to a set amount of $2,000.
So because the sales dollars are down, that's where you're seeing the decrease.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we're projecting. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but that is what we're projecting. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Linda, and let me just say, so, we've never carried over monies well, typically all the monies that go to FSBD is usually their tax and then what we give out of TIF or other monies. This past year, it's been solely out of their, what they've collected in their tax. And as we know, Linda, everything is in flux, and right now our projections, this is just what we project to get by the end of the year, which has changed because we've extended business licenses. All of this is a guess. Let me just suggest this. We've always said, or at least we've said over the past couple of years, whatever you collect, you can use. So if on June 30th, there's $500 or $5,000 left that you collected out of your tax, then I don't have any problem doing a budget amendment next year and giving you that money to blow. However, recognize that we also still don't know exactly where we're going to be next year. And so, going on a spending spree might also be premature because we don't know where we'll be at the end of it all. So you got to recognize this is all new to everybody here. We've changed dates when we're collecting money, et cetera. So what we've projected, let's go with that. Let's maybe the council, I won't be here, but I think I would like to hear the council's consensus that if there are funds collected by the FSBD Special Business District tax that on June 30th have not been expended from that account, we haven't carried anything over in a long time because you've always gotten more than you collected. I don't have a problem letting you carry that over, and as long as the council doesn't care, I think we should just go forward with that assumption.
Well, that was what was our understanding last year, James, since we didn't have TIF money coming in, that any money left in our balance can be carried forward because it's such a low enough budget now. There's hardly much money in there to do anything with. So if we didn't spend it, we should be able to continue on.
Well, first and foremost, I would say some of the things that you guys are going to do or wanting to do, make sure that you coordinate with the city as far as some of our initiatives are going to be taking place because business grants and things like that, we're going to be we've already set aside money for some business grants. You may not want to spend $10,000 on business grants if we're already doing something with the like. But I think that just is going to be an important part of coordinating going forward. But right now we can just only go with what our best projection is, and as we get closer to that date, we'll know. And then I would encourage the council to revisit that periodically next year going forward. And then we just have to recognize that as you guys expend the money, because if it looks like we're going to fall short, there won't be any more expenses. So, just like us, if we think we're going to collect $10 million and we budget for $10 million, we collect 9, we don't spend 10, and we're not going to let you do the same. So
we're not intending to do that. We just need an idea of what we're going to have to work with.
We're giving you an idea, but we don't know until June 30th of 2021, Bob. That's the point. It's always a projection. And so this is our best guess, and we'll revisit it as we go.
So James or Lexi, what is the real number that's in there currently?
I can't get into my computer to tell you. Let me see.
Linda, are you asking what's the real number that is in the budget for fiscal year 2021?
No, I'm asking.
Or what has been collected for this year?
Yeah, how much has been collected for this year and what's currently in the budget right now that's real money? It's not a projection. It's what's on the balance sheet.
Through June 30th.
Well, we can't foresee into the future what it's going to be. You can only see where they're at.
No, I know, but just like my checking account, if I look and see how much I got, how much money I got right now, today, at this moment, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. Because I know some people have paid their business license and so forth. I mean, I'm just asking.
Do you have
Um,
access to that, Lexi, right now?
I can't get, no, I can't because I'm on this call. It's on my, it has my whole screen. I can't get to my desktop anymore. Maybe can I do it over? No?
I mean, I think if it's honestly at this point, it's a moot point. We've already said, I don't have a problem, and I would ask the council's support to just say, if they've got anything left over, then they can have it. I mean, end of story. I mean, instead of trying to nitpick if they got $500 or $750 left or whatever, we really won't know until June 30th anyway. So,
I think,
and I
I
don't,
think it
and
was,
unless FSBD is planning on going on a spending spree in the next month, I don't know that it matters. We'll make sure they get the money.
yeah, and James, I think that, you know, this year going forward, we thought it was going to be easier because it was monies collected by FSBD. So it was going to be theirs regardless. It got muddy when it was additional monies coming from the city. But this is pretty clear cut that it's monies collected for the FSBD. So I have no problem carrying over or making a budget amendment or anything.
I think that you're right. That was the original purpose. That was the original thought process. Is there any objections from any council members?
No, I think that's exactly what we should do.
I don't hear any objections. So,
This is Tony. I have no objection.
so thank you, Tony.
This is Ella. I agree.
This is Fran. I'm totally fine with rolling over whatever is left into next year's budget. That's fine.
Okay.
So
If there's, I mean, obviously, if there's something the FSBD comes up with between now and the end of the year, then we'll make sure that you guys, you know, then it'll be an important conversation. Obviously, if you need to spend it before the end of the year, but otherwise, if it rolls over, it rolls over.
Okay, so we'll be working on the revised, making some revisions to the July 1 budget. We will be submitting, I know at least 2 invoices for the Ferguson Times, and we're requesting a purchase of a trash can. We'll be submitting at least 2 additional invoices before June 30th, and we'll move forward with the $15,000 budget for July 1, and any monies that's left over be rolled over, and you guys will catch us up on what that total is going to be at the appropriate time.
Right.
Who's speaking right now?
That's Karita. She's the president of the FSBD.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry, Karita Douglas, president of FSBD.
Hey, this is Tony. How you doing, girl?
Oh, hey, Tony. How you doing?
I just didn't recognize your voice. So sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
And I, just so the council knows, I mean, we are planning on reviewing for the general fund, I mean, for the regular city budget, reviewing all the revenues and everything on a monthly basis. And we are planning on doing that for FSBD too. So that way we can keep updated on where the revenues are every month.
Okay, perfect.
And Lexi,
Yes,
Lexi, so once we're off with this meeting, you will have access to tell them what they do currently have on the books as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Hi, Lexi.
yes, sir.
I've got it actually. I'm looking at the general ledger right now, and it says 6,000. Where'd it go? $6,192.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions?
Can you repeat the number?
Sure. 6,192.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
all right, that's very good. Now we know we got what we got left to work on. We projected another with the Ferguson Times invoice, and if we purchase a trash can, that's $2,500. So that would take the 6192 down by $2,500. So around 3,000 would go on top of the 15. So we'd be working around the $18,000 budget starting July 1. Everybody kind of understand where we would be at?
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
I may have misunderstood what you wanted to know. The $6,192 is the revenue collected from FSBD members this year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's collected, which is going forward into the July 1 budget, right?
No, that's been collected since July 1 of 2019 through
Oh,
today.
I see. I see. Okay. So what's the balance in our account then? Just that?
But it'll be negative.
Oh, it'd be negative because we've already spent 11,000?
Correct.
Well, it makes it a little challenging then if we're figuring we were working at a $28,000 budget beginning of last year, and now we're saying that we're going to be on the negative side. So does that mean that's going to affect the $15,000 starting July 1?
I don't see how it cannot help but do that. Again, it goes back to that decision made to extend the due dates. So instead of all those dollars rolling in at this point in time, because normally most of the dollars collected are collected in April, May, June, July. So they're going to get pushed out. So we're back to the discussion of we don't know what those dollars are going to be.
Okay. So it almost makes more sense that we really decide something in August about how much money we're going to have to operate for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay. Well, all right. Now I understand it much better. So I guess that's what we'll do is we have a commitment to Ferguson Times for 3 months, and that's the $1,500. And we won't expenditure a trash can at this point until we get into August. What do you think, Rita?
Yeah, I mean, we came across some new information, so we would need to go back and,
Right.
yeah, do some more planning. Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's all we have at this point.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to have time, and thank you so much for your patience and clarifying exactly what's going on and keeping us posted and updated. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Welcome. Bye.
bye. Hopping off.
All right. Jeffrey and Lexi, James had to step away for a few minutes. So do you want to take us to the next section, or does anybody have any other questions on FSBD?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so let me, because I have my budget book up, but so Octavia, we want to go to page, ooh, that was pretty good. What we need to start on tonight is we have to finish up the general fund. We have the municipal streets section first, which is division 51, which is on page, starts on page 266. And that is, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to discuss.
Well, thank you, Lexi, Madam Pro Tem, and members of City Council. the street fund, as you guys know, fixes and maintains our roadways. What is unfortunate is as times have moved along in Ferguson, our budgets have all been shrunk. This one especially has been shrunk. You can see that the 2021 budget is not significantly less than fiscal year 20, but it is less. We have the same amount of staffing that's programmed this year as we had last year, which is a good thing. We will have those 9 individuals in the street department. Let's see. I think really the biggest thing I'd like to bring out to your attention is we're forecasting a pretty low number in mosquito control this year. We had enough leftover chemicals that we can basically do the same type of service that you're used to seeing this year with the chemicals that were left over from last year. And so that's a pretty big savings. And other than that, other than about a $20,000 cut in next year's street repairs line item, that's the line that we use to go buy asphalt or concrete. And so other than that cut, really it's pretty much the same budget as it was last year. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any about any of the specific lines or about our services.
What is the library maintenance?
So one of the really neat things that I think Ferguson does that's different than a lot of communities is we really cooperate with our other governmental units. And so the library doesn't have a maintenance staff. They've got librarians, but we've got a great maintenance staff. And so we, for years, have assisted them in whatever light maintenance or even some heavy maintenance that they wanted done. And so we charge them a very fair hourly rate and for all the materials necessary to maintain their building. So everything from changing light bulbs to painting, sometimes some light repairs. When they did their remodeling recently, they did hire a contractor to do that, but we do almost everything else for them. And that has an offsetting revenue, Linda. So when you see that number, you can almost count that as a zero.
Okay, because they do pay you back from their funds. And then the other question I have is on snow removal. We had a budget of 30,000, then we forecasted to 72, and now we're back down to 30. Is 72 our actual, where we actually ended up being with our heavy winter?
It is, and that's that's weather dependent. I think we had actually, didn't we process a budget amendment for that line? Since it was so much over?
We would have had to, I think.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember it either, but
we also charge people for some of that salt and salt delivery and snow plowing that we do. So,
right.
So there is some revenue from that?
Yes, ma'am. And it was a snowy, salty year for us this year, which there was a lot this year.
Yeah. So that includes salt, as you would guess, salt delivery, liquid calcium, which we had a lot of instances when we had either rain and then it was going to be quickly turning to cold weather and we were worried about ice. And so we used a lot of calcium and also, parts. So it's parts for the snow plows, the rubber that we have on the bottom of the plow so we don't have the metal scraping on the roads. There's a rubber gasket. Those gaskets wear away, as you would imagine. And so that's the replacement parts for those. So it was just a really wet, nasty winter, as you guys know. You lived it. You know what I'm saying?
I lived it downhill.
Yep. The other thing to keep in mind is weather events cost between $3,000 and $6,000 per. And the normal number or average number of weather events in a given year are 4. Sometimes we're a lot higher. Go back to 2018, we were lower at $15,000.
I had a question. This is Fran. I had a question about the training and education. I'm looking at the budget for 2020 and also for 2021, but the actuals are lower. Is there any way we can lower that? I know a penny saved is every penny counts, but it looks like maybe we're budgeting higher than what we're actually doing. And I'm just looking at all the other departments. We kind of cut that training and education expense. Should we lower that as well?
Fran, are you looking at the conference line or the training and education line? Because training and education line is 400, but the conference line, I see what you're talking about.
I was looking at training and education, but it's pretty, I would say the same thing for the conferences as well.
You're muted, Matt. You're muted, Matt.
Well, I didn't mute me. So I guess it muted myself. I guess I got auto muted. But anyway, I think, yes, for continuity, we probably should switch those numbers around we have in every other division. So what we might call conferences or, through training and education.
Why is he being muted? You're muted again. We unmuted? No.
So I'm definitely not muting myself. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. So we have training and education. We have conferences. The difference with my guys is they have licenses that they hold that they have to maintain. And so whether it's their CDL or it's their mosquito spraying license, their herbicide application license, all those things may be ending up landing in conferences. Now, we definitely need to clean that up. Yes, that needs to be a 0. And if we need more money in training, we need to make that amendment. But that's what we use, or will be using this coming fiscal year, those funds for. But yes, that's supposed to be a 0 in conferences, and we may have to bump training and education up to maybe 500 or 600. But we'll only be using that for the maintenance of those trainings and certifications.
Well, wouldn't it be smarter if we just made a new line that's training or it's licenses and certifications and then put those fees in there, because that would be clearer for people going forward? Just a thought.
I think it's a good idea to you and me, but I think for the auditor and for budget purposes, we'd like to be able to see that line continue. And if we have been spending for those things out of that account in the past, we'd like to continue doing that just for continuity. So you can look with your eyes across that line and see how it's changed or how it's not.
Okay.
Matt,
Yes,
for street repair, I know we use a cold patch for the asphalt. Is it anything else? Is there another product that we could use? Simply because once they put that cold patch stuff in the hole, once a car rolls over about 4 or 5 times, the hole becomes larger. So it looked like we just putting stuff down and it's not holding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. What you say is correct. Cold patch is a temporary fix, and we only use that in the wintertime when the asphalt plants are closed. So as soon as the asphalt plants open, which they've been open now for almost a month, we go down and we buy asphalt hot mix, and we put the hot mix down, and we use our special truck that keeps it warm for longer so we can patch longer with the same load. We usually get about 1 ton of asphalt at a time. And I just approved the bill the other day. We're putting about 1 ton into the community almost every single day, if not every other day. We're out there doing pothole patching. So it's a big job, Ella, and you're right. So winter long, in the wintertime, it stinks because we got to use that cold patch. But in the summertime, we use the hot mix, and that stays much, much better. That's a more permanent fix.
With the hot mix, is there a seal that you can use on top of it?
They already do.
When you do a patch and you cut the edges and you dry it, you can do a sand seal around the outside. Yes, ma'am. And that's something that I've talked to Steve about, getting the training and the materials to be able to do that. But as of this time, we do not have that. We don't have the capabilities to do that.
And we're looking at a drop by, sorry. it's dropping by half for next year. So we're going to be doing less street repairs overall.
Yes, that's correct.
So have you ever looked into that rubberized recycled tire stuff again? We can talk about that later.
Sorry, I had somebody at my door.
That's fine.
Unless it comes with a way to pay for it, I don't know that it's part of this conversation.
Right.
Well, I did actually have a question in regards to a project that we had. We did a contract for to do the streets, and what we had initially said, and it's going back to what Linda was talking about. We had talked about the type of repaving that was going to be done on those streets, and then because of the type of work that needed to be done, that work changed. I was curious to find out how much money, because I know originally we had put a certain amount saying we're going to spend X amount of money on it, but because we had to do other work, I wanted to know how much was actually left over for that particular project and where that money was put into after the fact.
I'm not sure which project you're talking about, Fran. What specific project are you talking about?
There were several streets over here in the 3rd Ward. I believe it was
So you're talking about the annual street project?
Lorette, Castro, Blanding, Dupree, Halpin, I believe. I think we left out Laganda.
Right.
But originally we had, hired a contractor to do this work for X amount of money. And then that work turned into just pockets of repaving. So I'm just wondering how much money was saved out of that particular thing. And then after that work was done, was there anything left after that was done? And if so, where was that money put into within the budget?
So the answer to your question is no. That did not happen the way that you have related. So initially, when we were in the planning stages, we weren't certain whether we would have enough money, given the market, how much things cost to repair or replace, to either overlay those concrete streets, so abandon the broken slabs, many of them, and just cover over all the streets with asphalt, which is a less desirable solution. The more desirable solution, which is much more labor intensive and much more expensive, is to remove the slabs one by one and replace the bad ones that need replacing. That's what we ended up choosing. That's what we ended up bidding, because the market would bear that competition was high and there wasn't a lot of jobs out there. And so we were able to get the preferred solution for a very affordable price from I think a very respectable vendor, E. Myers, who we're using. And so you're right. We were able to get the better, higher preferred, most desirable solution for an affordable price. And so it wasn't what we initially were talking about. I was asking you and your fellow city council person in the ward at the time to consider perhaps taking a lesser solution, something that was less desirable. Having asphalt over the concrete streets, you eventually lose the curbs. People will tell you that live in those neighborhoods, it's not the best way. Concrete streets are the Cadillac of a road. That is the best you can get. And that's what we provide your neighborhood, was the best solution. There are no leftovers, there are no savings, there's no cash of money. What the project was awarded at is what was spent and what was allocated.
I just remember him coming in and this was the contractor, I'm assuming, coming in and doing a presentation in front of.
No, ma'am. The contractor has never been in the city hall. This you're talking about. Tom Weiss, the city engineer, came in and talked to you about the different alternatives, but E. Meyer has never been in city hall and given you a presentation.
Is there any other questions for Matt or? the line item? If not, let's move on to the next one.
My next one is 53. That's budget 53, fund division 53, I'm sorry. And that's on page 288. I'm sorry, Lexi, I took over driving. Is that where you wanted to go?
Yes, that's next. You're good.
Okay. All right, so division 53 is our services to other entities. This is a, Lexi, what's a good way to describe this? It's a in and out. It's just basically an accounting.
Yes, this is basically an account that we use that calculates all the services we provide to other municipalities with surrounding municipalities. The costs are all collected here, so we can see what those costs are. We then have an offset in revenue for these costs.
Thank you, Lexi. That was
Build out and build out with all of the costs are billed out, like certain municipalities that get fuel, we bill that out to them, they pay us monthly. We get a report from the garage every month and we bill that out. So it's basically a wash. It doesn't have any impact to our budget because they use it, we bill them. If anything, we get a little bit of a cushion for some of the administrative portions of sending it out and doing the work.
So like Lexi said, this is an in and out. This shows how our services that we give to our fellow municipalities are rendered. You know, we sell fuel and we do repairs on for a number of municipalities. And in fact, at your next council meeting, you'll have a resolution to accept a new, hopefully accept a new municipality to that club. Normandy has decided to utilize our services for the repair of their vehicles wisely, I believe. And so that'll be a resolution on your council agenda for next Tuesday. But if you guys have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Matt, can we make sure that we have a resolution or something approving that from their end, since they seem to have a problem with that?
You know what, Mr. Mayor, I thought it was rather strange how quickly that document was returned to me after I sent it to them. So I will inquire about that. Yes, sir.
I just know that that was an issue with the previous mayor and the number of unapproved expenditures. and I believe one of those were ours, or there was one expenditure with us. So that was, I guess, expended but not approved. But I assume that stuff's not going on over there anymore. But you know, I don't want us to get into I don't want us to get caught in between whatever political battle they got going on.
I agree. Yes, sir.
Happy to take their money as long as they're paying.
So that's the end of my report on 53.
Anything else from Matt regarding Division 53? All right, seeing none, we'll go on. We'll just go back to Lexi.
Yes, the next division that we're looking at is in the general fund, is Division 71, which is park maintenance. That is found on page 301. And that is again, Matt.
Thank you, Alexa. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this division, as you would intuit, is responsible for maintaining all the city parks and all the equipment and so on. We have a full complement of 4 persons that are dedicated to park maintenance, but quite frankly, many of the persons who are also in the street department are on a mower, are part of the crews for maintaining our parks. So I don't want you to get the impression that there's just those 4 individuals. There's a larger pool, but likewise, these park maintenance people are also out on the streets and helping. So really, it's a team effort. So scanning down through this year's budget, reviewing for next, really you see that there's some of the big changes are salary. Salaries are going up. We're filling a vacant spot. Let's see. And that really is pretty much it. There's not a whole lot else that's a change over last year.
What position are we filling?
So I believe that Steve Kalist, when he was promoted, he was actually in the Parks Division. And so we're just replacing his full-time position, which is open at this time.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Any other questions for Matt? All right, moving on.
Okay, the next division that we have is Division 95 in the general fund, which is the garage division, which is page 390. And that also is Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Lexi. So this division, 3 full-time employees, the secretary, the administrative assistant, and then 2 mechanics. Those mechanics, as I mentioned earlier, not only work on our vehicles, but work on the vehicles of other municipalities that contract with us for their service and repair. This year's budget is slightly under what our forecast is for next fiscal year. We don't really have anything that's jumping off the page at me that looks different or that catches my eye that I want to relay to you. Some of these things, you know, quite honestly, are wild-eyed guesses. You know, like the vehicle repair costs and the parts and the fuel costs. We do our very, very best to look at what the trend data is, but when it comes down to it, when you have a catastrophic repair, that can throw those things way off. So, you know, we do our very best to make sure that what we're telling you is true and accurate. But like many of you, transmissions just spontaneously break sometimes, and when those transmissions are bolted to a $1 million fire truck, it can be quite devastating to a line item budget. So that's pretty much all I had. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for Matt? All right, we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, then the next division is, that's the end for general fund. We don't have any other accounts to look at or divisions to look at for general fund. So now we're going to move on to the Parks Fund. The Parks Fund, the first division is 72, which is recreation. That is on page 321. And that would be Dave Musgrave, who will be presenting this budget.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, good evening.
Good evening.
Going down through our budget, I will start with wearing apparel. You'll notice that we cut that completely out of 72, so we won't have any clothing being purchased for full-time staff out of 72 this year. The next big change that you will look at is going to be our public reporting line. Public reporting, we have cut to $14,000. What usually comes out of public reporting is our brochures. So we're going to reduce those numbers by just mailing to residents, and then also hopefully reducing the number of pages in them and kind of compacting that publication to save some money there. Next line that has a change in it is going to be our community relations, and we cut that completely out. Just so you know what that means, basically that's all of our summer concerts for the summertime. That's been eliminated completely from the budget. Our next line is going to be the teen programming. Cut that down to $5,000. That leaves us keeping the Hidden Valley ski trip along with our Six Flags trip for the teens. Pretty much every other teen program at this point would be cut out of 72. The next one's going to be cultural programs. This is going to be a cut down to $0 as well. Cultural programs is everything that we subsidize. So you're looking at your fall festival, Easter egg hunts, all of those programs that we do not charge for. Those have been eliminated from the Parks Fund at this point. Next one is going to be the 4th of July. Planning to cut that out completely as well. Another program that we will be losing. Next line that has a change in it is going to be merchandise for resale, cutting that down to $0. So any trinkets and other giveaways and those sort of things that we purchased out of that line, eliminating that as well. Reimbursable programs is going to be the next one. Cut that down to $15,000. I don't foresee a whole lot of leagues taking place this summer with everything going on. And if it comes down to it, we're going to have a lot of senior programs and that kind of stuff as far as trips go. We will then approach it with a budget amendment down the road. But as you know, with the seniors being an at-risk population, the likelihood of that happening in the near future is pretty slim. Next one is going to be our senior citizen programs. We cut that back to $5,000. That basically allocates our money for bingos and a couple other smaller programs. But again, with everything going on with COVID-19, not forecasting a whole lot of things going on with the senior citizens at the current moment. Next one down is professional services. This is usually our inclusion person. And we go on with a kind of a group with Hazelwood, Florissant, and 3 other municipalities in North County to pay for that. There is actually a balance in that group account that's held with Hazelwood. So they're choosing not to collect those fees for this next year. So we just took that down to 0 because we don't have to pay that bill this year. Next one is going to be all the way down at the bottom. It's going to be our gymnasium roof replacement. That was going to be over $100,000 repair. We eliminated that completely. And we also took a stump grinder out of the budget at the bottom as well.
Where is that at, Dave? Is that land and building?
Correct.
So can we go back to reimbursable programs? I thought you said that went to 5,000, but it shows not 0 on mine.
Let me pull it up 1 second.
Or 15,000, I thought you said. I don't.
Yeah, I said 15,000.
It's showing 0 on my sheet.
It is showing 0 on your sheet. You're correct. It should be at 15,000. That might just be a mistake. Lexi?
Yeah, I think that one of the things, I think we still have 15,000 in cultural programs, which I think was for the fireworks. So that we then cut those out when we realized we weren't even going to be able to do that. And so then you moved that down to reimbursable, but it was after this was done when we were making those last final cuts.
So cultural programs is cut to 0 then?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so it's just a flip-flop on the line, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And a quick question about the senior citizen program. You said that got cut, but it looks like it doubled from last year.
Well, senior citizens programs, there used to be 2 budget lines. We'll get to that too in a minute. Over in 75, which is the community center line, there used to be a senior citizen program line as well. I've just moved all the funds for both senior citizen and teen programs to 72, just so it makes more sense for my staff when they're coding their expenses.
Okay, so senior citizen program under this fund is for senior citizens and teens in
No,
both.
there's a separate line. There's senior citizen programs, which is 02117, and you'll see teen programs as well, 02111. And they both, teens went down this line, but basically they both had redundant lines over in 75 in the community center. And so I just combined the community center and the parks together. So when they have one line to code those expenses out.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. It got confusing when they were paying their bills, I'll be honest with you. Any other questions about 72?
Any questions? All right, we'll go on to the next.
Next one is going to be 73, which is going to be our splash at Wabash.
Page 349.
All right. So Splash at Wabash, we first started with housekeeping, cut that down to $1,000 from $3,000. I'm going to preface this whole thing with this is counting on the pool not opening at all this summer. Basically, no matter what, if we got the go-ahead to open the pool, it's going to take us a minimum of 3 weeks to get chemicals in, water in, everything else. And realistically, our season at best right now would be a 30-day season. And typically our pool on average, we're losing about $45,000 on a good year. If we have a reduced number of patrons that we're allowed to bring in the pool, let's say they allow us to have 25%, we're going to take an even bigger hit in that. And then with a reduced amount of time it's open, fiscally, it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to open it this summer with everything else going on. And so all the numbers that I'm about to go over with you as far as cuts, it's basically just allocating that we're not going to be having any expenditures in this actual fiscal year. But you have to remember this budget extends over to next summer as well. So we've got to take into consideration May and June of next year when we're going to open the pool for next summer. So that's why you'll see these expenses have been cut sometimes in a third or half, just depending on what we think we're going to need to open the pool for next season. So the first one, like I said, is housekeeping. We cut that down to $1,000. Basically, we're going to be buying our toilet paper, paper towels, and all that to open the season for next year. And that's going to be the amount of money we're going to need for that. The next one's going to be water treatment. It's cut down to $4,500. Next one after that is going to be pool maintenance and supplies. We've cut that down to $10,000, mainly because we won't have a whole lot of repairs to do this actual season. It'll be next season. There's a potential we'll have to replace a pump and a control unit in the pool. And so that's why we've allocated $10,000 for that going into the next year. The next one's going to be professional services. We've cut that down to $98,000. Actually it's showing $50,000. I apologize. And basically that's cut that back because we won't have the lifeguard fees or any of that this summer. And that covers 73. Are there any questions about the pool?
I have a question. Did we, with the tragedy of the little boy over the winter time, do we have to do anything with the fencing? I mean, and I guess this question is open to all of you.
As of right now, county regulations, we do meet them. However, we are adjusting the way the fence actually sits on the hill on that line to make sure there are no gaps that are over 4 inches. We're working with Public Works to adjust those pickets and all those things. But according to regulations, our fence was within regulations before any of this happened.
Okay, good to know.
I have a quick question about, we had signed the contract with the, who was going to manage our pool. How are we paying them, or how are we augmenting or modifying that contract?
So we've modified it by not paying the lifeguard salary portion of it. Currently, we're still paying the management fee portion of it because they are still managing the contract. We are not paying any of the salaries currently. And then I've been told we'll address that once we have a definite open or not open for this season, and we'll come back and visit it for next year.
All right, thank you.
Not a problem. Any other questions? Next one is going to be the concession stand budget, and that's going to be number 74. And
That is-
again, I'm sorry.
That's 360. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And again, concession stands operating is similar to the pool in the fact that we won't have a whole lot taking place this summer, but we do still have a few months in next year. So you'll see some different numbers here cut in half and reduced. The first one, of course, wearing apparel. We're not going to have any shirts purchased for concession staff. Anybody who's returning this year, they already have shirts from last year, so we're good on that. Repair and maintenance, we cut down to $200. The next one is going to be concession supplies. We cut that down to $900. Next one's merchandise for resale. Cut that a little bit over in half, mainly because we won't have a whole lot of supplies to purchase this summer. Next one is going to be equipage. Cut that down to $5,600. And then we left miscellaneous at $200 in that budget as well. Any questions around concessions?
Any questions? All right, go ahead.
All right, next budget we're going to be looking at is the community center budget, 75. Big thing you'll see in here is going to be the
Real quick, that's page 369.
Yeah. In this one, we reduced some lines. The biggest reduction that you may or may not notice in this one is actually going to be our staffing. So we reduced $30,000 in permanent part-time. It's not showing that in here, Lexi, actually, now that I look at it. Under salaries. But anyway, we're reducing that because we're planning on not having the day camp this summer. So we're reducing salaries by $30,000. So that's how much we average spend on staffing for that. Then moving down, pretty much everything is pretty close to normal. You notice that conferences is taken away. Our training education did go up. And that's just to keep our certified in park recreation professional certification through CEUs. Outside of that, there weren't a whole lot of other changes. Are there
So
any-
where you have the teen program at 0 and the senior program at 0, that's where it moved over to the other one like Heather was asking about?
That is correct.
Okay.
Where they went to 0, that money then moved over to 72. And if you'll notice, the senior citizen program was at 8,000 here, and that's why it went up on the other line.
So the summer camp program, is that the Strength and Honor program with Albert Harold?
That's the one we partner with him on, yes.
So that's where we're saving the money on the part-time employees?
Correct.
Okay, because I've had a lot of people asking if that program was going to happen this year. So the answer is no.
As of right now, yes. Any other questions about Parks, Recreation?
This is Tony. I've got a question on the Strength and Honors. Did you ever sign an MOU with them?
No, ma'am. We were working on one. I sent it back to Mr. Harold going on 3 weeks ago, and he was supposed to be looking it over, and I never received it back. We had spoken about a week ago. Because of the way summer camp was looking, he said there was no point in moving forward with it at this time.
What is an MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding. It's like a contract. My question to you also, Dave, is that does that mean that she decided not to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, or did you just, whose decision was it then not to sign, not to complete it?
I would say it was mutual, if I had to answer the question honestly. I did my due diligence to put it together to where I felt everything was covered on both of our sides. But seeing that we weren't planning on having the day camp this summer, he just chose that it wasn't worth putting the effort in to have his attorney or his people look over it, was my understanding.
Okay. So then, because this could come up, so we need to know who canceled the MOU. So it was not you.
The ball was last in his court.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. So in that case, what we need to shut it down and say he decided to not go forward. So it needs to be shut down. And if the MOU just can't lay around, you got to shut it down or you got to go forward. So Bloom, I'm on the phone, so I don't know if Jerry Apollo is there. So Bloom, I'm going to go to you. Is that what we're going to do? We're going to say that the Strength and Honors decided to cancel the contract. We just cannot let an MOU lay.
Well, as I understand, the MOU that was signed last year was limited in term to last year. And so right now, there is no agreement between us.
Okay, very good.
Good question, Tony. Thank you for following up on that. But is there any other questions or any comments regarding this issue or another issue on parks? All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Thank you.
Okay, now that we are done with parks, the only other division that we really want to dive deeper into would be the capital improvement program, or CIP. That would be all the capital improvement projects. The list of those projects starts on page 418. And each division will go over their specific projects as they pertain to them, but I wanted to go over the overall cuts that were made. There were several cuts that were made to this CIP budget after the CIP, before the CIP was printed. So when you look at it, there are accounts that we have an account or listing for it, but we don't have a dollar amount, and the reason why is that was cut. For example, if you look, it looks like it is the community center gymnasium roof replacement. We originally had money budgeted for that roof replacement. It looks like there was $12,000 budgeted for that roof replacement for 2021. We also, is that correct, Dave?
No, it was 120.
Oh, 120. Sorry, my screen cut it off. So we also had 30,000 budgeted for a stump grinder. That's 2 lines down. We have reduced, and all of these reductions were done in an effort to try to get the CIP back into balance. because as you know, our CIP we were negative and we have a negative fund balance. So we have to get that corrected. So we had to cut a lot of programs and a lot of things that we had hoped to do in 2021. Some of those other items that we have cut we cut $60,000 out of police cars. We cut $65,000 for a new command vehicle for the fire department. We cut out all of the street replacement, all 300,000. We cut out all the sidewalk replacement, which was 5,700. We cut out $60,000 for a dump truck. Then we cut out $700 for the fuel island and gate card reader upgrade that was needed down at the garage. Plus $75,000 was cut from the citywide surveillance cameras. $65,000 was cut from City Hall security upgrades. And then $25,000, Matt, is that correct, for the public works software, which was the online permit software? So those are the cuts that we made to this budget before we even brought it to you, just to get it into line. So everybody has cut really everything they possibly could, or at least that we thought we could maybe hold off one more year on before we even brought this to you. So I'll let each of the departments address if any questions you all might have about how that might affect their operations or themselves or their departments or divisions going forward. So the first division we have is looks like it's going to be the Parks Department, which is on page 418 at the top, and that would be Dave to go over any of his issues.
The only two projects that we have in 2021 are going to be the West Florissant Community Park, which is a grant-based project, and then also the Forestwood Ball Field renovations, which is the park community project we'd be going after this year. In saying that, the park community grant is unsure as far as what they're going to do because of the COVID situation. They know that a lot of people's capital budgets are struggling, but as I gather more information, I'll have more information about that. We're kind of in a holding pattern at this point. But typically that is a 5% matching grant awarded up to $475,000. That's why you see that number there.
Hey, Dave, I got a phone call from our friend Mary Hudson. So are we doing anything at all with the tennis courts? I know we had talked about it. We had gone after a grant. I wasn't sure what the status was on that, or if it's
That's actually one of the projects that I wanted to roll into this Forestwood Ball Field renovation. It's just a shortened title, but basically it'll be all renovations over Forestwood to hopefully include resurfacing some of the tennis courts, some of the ball field products. We need to do some work over the concession stand over there. We'd also like to potentially address the playground. But yes, that's all rolled in this. I just don't have a good answer from the park community people yet.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
Hey, oh, one more question. Are you guys going to get through a rainy season okay over there without that roof?
It is actually in the overhang, so it's not going to affect the direct concessions operation over there as much. It's more where the tables and the picnic stuff is over there. But yeah. Oh, you're talking about the gymnasium?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was talking about two different things. Yes, the gym, we had 2 leaks, and honestly, when they did the repairs on the community center section of the roof down the hall, they did address those with some epoxy. So they have not been leaking as much. So I think we'll be good for another year, possibly 2. But we will have to address that down the road for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have one more question. Why are we having 0 on Jolly Trolley? You guys didn't mention that one.
We already purchased both of them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Are there no other questions for?
Anything else? You go ahead and on to the next one.
Okay, the next division is the police department, which I will turn over to Chief Armstrong to go over his items.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
So just a few things to go over. You know, Lexi already hit on, 60,000 was taken from police cars, but we do still have some money in there to replace some of our older vehicles that need to be replaced. The dash and body cameras, we've run out of the window of when it was provided to us for free. And so that's why we have that money in here. And so we will be purchasing the dash cams for the vehicles and the new body cameras with this line item. Our vehicle laptops, that's replacing the old laptops that are outdated, that need to be replaced in our vehicles. We have the bulletproof vest, which, a portion of that is grant funded. And so, we'll be drawing down on that next fiscal year. So we shouldn't have to use the entire 7,000, but once we have a better clear picture of how many we have to replace, then I anticipate that number coming down some. Now, one thing that was added in here, you see our radar guns, $12,000 is actually supposed to be $12,700. And so as we discussed in one of the previous meetings that we had, is our current equipment is outdated. They're not able to calibrate the devices because they're so old, and so we can't use them. And so a short fix, and what we're doing is, instead of trying to buy radar units that are physically installed in the vehicles, we're going to buy 7 laser units that are handheld, so they're not installed in the vehicle. So that gives us flexibility that officers can share them. And so when the team goes out for the day, they can just check out the laser unit and use it, and then multiple officers can use them. So that saves us some money, but it also gets us a needed tool that we need out there with the traffic problems and the speeding problems that we all know that we have. And so that was added in here. And the last line on here is the data storage for the Axon body cameras. If everything stays in place with what we've been able to work out with the company, we shouldn't have to spend that. But we won't know definitively until we finalize everything, with the contract with Axon. But what we've been able to work out and negotiate, and they've been very, very gracious in working with us, because we're in such a crunch. And the 73,000 number that we have up at the top, we've been able to build in the data storage into that number. And so as long as nothing changes on their end to where they need to adjust kind of what we worked up to at this point, we're just holding that in there until we finalize everything and know for a fact that we don't have to purchase the servers ourselves to store it on site, that we can store everything through their technology, which, would be a lot better for us long term. We have that in there, but the way it's looking right now, if everything goes through how we have it right now, we won't have to spend that $20,000. We'll save that, and it'll be encompassed in the fee that we're paying for the dash and the body cameras.
Chief Armstrong?
Yes, ma'am.
So will you know that? You won't know that until after after June 30th? Or when do you think that you?
Correct, yeah. So this contract won't get done until December.
Okay.
So yes, ma'am, it'll be after that.
Okay.
Chief Armstrong, on the Taser International line, that's
yes, ma'am.
That was forecasted 0 and it's still 0. Can you tell me why?
I mean, when we went through and looked at the equipment that we have, and honestly, with the cuts that we had to make, when we assessed our tasers, they're still working fine. Like, there is no problem that we have with them to what we would have to spend that money to upgrading them, because the dash cams and the body cameras are a more pressing issue for us, and we have to get that done this year. And so that's why we took that out, and we'll move that a little bit down the road before we need to purchase new tasers.
And then how many bikes was $6,000 going to buy?
That bought 4 bikes. Yeah, it was, I believe it was 4 bikes that we got for that. Yes, ma'am.
Because if could we start looking for possible grants or something like that, and if we could find it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So we just submitted last week for a grant for body cameras. It's a very competitive grant. And so, our odds aren't that great, but we did get it in, we did get it submitted. And so we have some flexibility with that. The bicycles, but the bicycle part, we've already purchased those and got those in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The bikes we already have.
Okay.
And quick question, Chief. As far as the radar guns go, I mean, those will be valid enough to write tickets, right? I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. There are two, there are two ways to kind of, do speed enforcement. And one, you have a built-in radar device that's installed, is hardwired into the vehicle. And then the other is what you see, the little handheld that they hang out. And so it's the handheld device. And actually the handheld laser devices are actually stronger in court than the radar devices are, because you pick up individual vehicles with the laser unit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we currently have any radar control?
Yes, we still have a couple, but like I said, the bulk of them we can't use because they're 20 plus years old and they can't be calibrated. And if it's not calibrated, then you can't use it.
You can use my blow dryer. That works.
I don't think that would hold up in court. But that's all I have.
Okay.
All right. Lexi, who's next?
Chief Hampton.
Chief
Next
Hampton.
would be the fire department. It would be Chief Hampton.
Okay, Mayor, Council, how you guys doing tonight? As Lexi told you, 65,000 was cut out for the command vehicle. And a couple years ago, we put in place the turnout gear, the firehouse infrastructure, and the fire replacement equipment. Those are kind of programs that we're running. So those have been approved, hopefully, and we can continue with those. As you're also going to see, the monitor AED citywide. This year, currently, I had $28,000 on the budget. We are not spending that $28,000. We're going to put that into with the $65,000. The reason I'm doing this is the fire trucks need 2 new ones, and we're going to more of a advanced life support. And then every AED in the city is no longer compliant, and we cannot or pads and or I can't fix them anymore. So I was able to work out a deal with our vendor, and a pretty good deal to get 2 advanced life support monitors and for the city for that 60, I think it was like 64,500, 64,800, something like that. So we're coming out pretty good with that, and those will also be compatible with what we would use when we would come in. So if somebody started off with the AED, our stuff will be able to be compatible with what's going on when we arrive. That's pretty much it with the fire department capital. I did put in for the AFG grant, and that's for the air compressor, the Lucas machine, and also the AED monitors. Hopefully I get some of that. It would save us some money down the road. So that's where we're at.
Chief Hampton, this is Fran. I had a question about the AED monitors. You mentioned it was, what did you say, 28,000, 27,000 originally for this year that wasn't spent, and that's being basically rolled over into the following budget, which, so the 65 is correct, or would it be whatever we had for this year on top of the 65 that you've got for 2021?
It would just be the 65 total.
Okay, thank you.
So instead of, I wasn't able to get the better deal if I would have bought just the 2 firehouse monitors, and then a couple months later buy the AEDs for the city. So if we did all at one time, I could get a much better deal, and that's how we worked it. And that's all I really have, unless anybody else has a question.
Any other questions for Chief? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this back to Matt then for the common fleet?
Yes, the infrastructure common fleet facilities are all met.
All right, thank you, Lexi, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As Lexi alluded to, we've made a lot of cuts in our CIP. I won't bore you with the details. The biggest and I think the most important to spend a moment on is the street replacement. And I just want to hover on that just for a moment. I know that when that was removed, it wasn't an insignificant cut. But, you know, as the public works director and as a person who really does care for Ferguson, that will have repercussions. You know, our streets are in bad shape, and we need every dime we can. I understand we don't have too many dimes this year. It's just that's a rough one. That's a hard one to swallow. It's hard for me, as I'm sure it's hard for you guys. We will have the 150,000 in, excuse me, 137,000 in CDBG to spend on streets, and I do have that information ready for you for 2021. This year, we're doing the other half of Carson. You might recall that. So that's where that money's going this current fiscal year. We split Carson up into two different funding years. So we spent last year CDBG and this year CDBG on that. Next year, I have a couple of different places where that can go. But we can talk about that next week. Really, for the most part, we're doing our STP projects next fiscal year, and we're replacing the bed of a 1.5 ton trucks. We bought steel beds, and then we put salt spreaders in the back of them, and we were surprised when they got eaten out as quickly as they did. They didn't last the life that we expected they would, and so we're going to be replacing that bed for $20,000 with an aluminum bed, and it should far outlast the chassis now at this point. Other than that, if you guys don't mind me stretching into facilities, we'll talk about the AC, system. Again, that's something that's required by the government. If we're, James can chime in on this. I'm sure he knows from his dad's business that you've got to be able to capture that freon from the systems, and we don't have an ability to do that right now. We're probably 10 years behind in that requirement or that need, and so this helps us work on AC units in our in-house. And I believe that's the end of my three departments. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So Matt, just so I am completely clear, the sidewalk program that we had developed the last couple of years that would maybe help citizens as well as, coordinate with replacement slabs for the city was doing, that's completely gone now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the whole sidewalk on my street that's collapsed about 4 feet down in a hole is.
Well, no. Steve and I actually talked about that this past week. We believe that might be one that we go ahead and fix this fiscal year. We can't figure out why that failed. It's not the fault of the homeowners.
There's limestone cave under there.
I don't know what it is. I really don't. It is a mystery why that failed. And so it's no fault of the homeowners. They didn't drive a big truck over it. They didn't have an erosion problem. It was, again, no fault of their own. So I believe we're going to try to get that fixed. But again, if there's a cave underneath that, Linda, we may not have enough stuff to put in the hole. But we'll try.
I just want to remind everybody before, if you're not actively speaking, if you could mute yourself, because there are still a lot of background noise. But I know there was someone else who wanted to speak. So who was that?
It's me. It's Fran.
Fran? Okay, go ahead.
Matt, can you explain a little bit, just a little bit more in detail about that CDBG and what was budgeted, and that it could be, you were saying that it could be used, but it wasn't put on the 2021. Could you explain that a little bit more?
I will. I don't know that if I said that I misspoke. So for the last 2 fiscal years, our CDBG has been used to improve Carson. So that road is what we use to improve it. Next year, I have 5 or 6 roads that I've picked out that I won't make a final decision until after winter, but we'll talk about that next year. And so all I was trying to say was that the 2 previous years' road money was combined into one project because it was so big. And so that's what we've been doing. And that's active. They're working on that right now.
All right. Is there any other questions?
You were mentioning, I'm sorry, I thought I was off of mute. So I
No
guess
problem.
I'm trying to understand the 137. You mentioned 137 still being available at some point. And so I'm just wondering why was it not on the 2021 yet?
You know, I don't know why that is not. It's not on your screen, and it's not on the paperwork that I have either. I think that must be an error. But again, we will be receiving that 137 next fiscal year. It will be there. So
Where should it? What line should it be on, Matt?
it just should be in the column under forecast and in 2021. So both those should have been filled in. I must have not filled those numbers in. Perhaps I don't know what the error is.
Lexi, can you change that in the system?
Yes, I can change it.
It says 2013. It shouldn't say 2013. I'm not sure why that says 2013 either. So that's also an error.
Yeah. No, I can change that. If it wasn't entered into Questica, I wouldn't have put it in here because because my understanding was this was 137,600 was 2 years worth of work. And I guess I thought when I didn't see it in Questica, I assumed that it was this year and next year's money, not this year and the year before. So that's why I didn't question it. So I can add that in though.
Yeah, it's just a human error, but thank you for catching that, Fran. I saw that too, and I thought it was a mistake. It was certainly odd.
No problem.
All right. Is there anything else on this from Matt? Seeing none, we'll move on to next division.
The next one's mine too. That's IT and a few other.
The next section is the non-department.
Sorry, Lexi.
Lexi, I'm sorry. Did you have something?
No, that's fine, ma'am. Matt can discuss it. That's fine.
All right. So yeah, the next one's IT infrastructure, and what we've planned for is a little bit more than what we had last year. Principally, that's because we're trying to replace some licenses and to upgrade to, a new version of Office. And we're also trying to implement some of the changes that our pen test alerted us to. And so we're replacing more PCs than we had in the past and trying to upgrade some old switches and things like that. So some of the architecture, the backbone of our IT system is being replaced, which is a good thing, but that's why that number is a little bit larger than last year. And that's really the only one that I have in this division, in this department, excuse me. The other the document management system, I believe, is Jeff or Lexi's.
The document management system, that is the HR system that was started a couple of years ago. It has not completely finished yet. We anticipated it being over with by the end of this fiscal year. We think it might carry over because of the City Hall being closed. We weren't letting anybody in, and the work has to be done in City Hall with the scanners. So that's why we're keeping that additional license next year, just to get that HR project completed. We figured it would go into a little bit of this year, or of 2021.
All right. Any questions regarding that?
I do have a question on the Apex
Go ahead.
software. I know we've got it 0. Is that the same Apex that they're talking about in the police department lines?
No, actually, that Apex software, that was Chief Hampton's software that was used for the fire marshal, for them to make all their pre-plans.
Mm-hmm.
So remember when Chief Hampton did his budget, he explained that this was in the CIP for this fiscal year because it was the implementation year and getting all the software up and running. All the expenses going forward are now in the general fund under their licensing because it's their annual licenses as opposed to the implementation.
All right. Sorry for making you repeat yourself. And
No, you're fine. No. Just it's one of those things between the two, and the other one being last week. It does get confusing. So.
So the other question I have too is the citywide surveillance cameras and the city hall security upgrades. I know we've got those down to 0, but and then Civic Plus is 0. Isn't Civic Plus our website?
That's correct. Civic Plus has already been done. So
Okay.
if you notice, it's already paid. And
Okay.
we don't have any additional costs going forward on that. And
Okay.
City Hall security and the citywide surveillance cameras, those both unfortunately had to be cut just so that we could try to come in a positive balance this year.
Okay. I do think we need to keep those in mind in future budgets. If we can afford them, we need to get them back in there. That's all.
Is it Matt still? Are you still up, or is it we moved on to someone else yet?
You know what? I think we're done.
Okay. Are we done? Let's see. Let me look at my agenda. Lexi, is there another?
The last
item
thing
here?
I had was this capital improvement
The
project.
capital improvement, and then yeah, we had a summary and review and conclusion.
Yes.
Well, it's 7:42. I mean, I know we usually try to keep these till 8. Jeff, were we looking to have the summary and review of the budget, or are we at that point yet where we're ready to wrap it up, or we're looking for just one more meeting on this?
No, I think we can wrap it up tonight. We're done in terms of the budget itself. You've seen that, in fact, we've got substantial reductions in out-of-pocket costs. We've got substantial reductions in capital and in virtually every other fund as well. And so now at this point in time, we're really talking about personnel costs.
Can we go over debt service?
Sure.
I have a question. This is Ella.
Yep.
Go ahead.
We asked Matt at the last budget meeting to call Click Fix to see exactly can we get out of that contract, and just wanted to know, did Matt make the call and does he have an answer for tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I did call and email them, and while I haven't spoken to them, they did email me back today and said that they were willing to suspend our account at no cost to us. That as far as negotiation goes, I thought that might be an easier letdown for them. They might agree to suspend our account rather than cancel it. That I told them that the idea was that sometime this year, if finances got better, we would reconvene and discuss whether or not it was going to be something that we would continue or not. If not, we'll make cancellation as we should via the contract. But what I suggested to them is they put something on the screen that just says to any user that logs on, basically that the account is suspended, and to call the city for details or something like that. And I believe they've agreed to that. So
I have a question about that. The app, I use it a lot. I know a lot of people use it. It's very efficient. If you don't have the app, then somebody got to sit by the phone answering messages and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, can you hear me?
Man, I got a question. This is Tony. The word suspend and the word sunset are generally used in this case. So my question is, did you suggest the word suspend, or for lack of a better word, like sunset? Because if the conversation is that if things get better, we'll come back to them. But that wasn't the conversation that we were having. We weren't planning on coming back to them at all. We just wanted to get out of doing business. And I understand what you just said, Brad, Aaron, but we were talking about, that's the conversation I was following the last time we talked about this. So suspend would not have been the right word. And I'm concerned about if that's what was relayed to that person from you, then you really didn't carry the message forward that we have discussed. Tell me if I missed something.
But not everyone's in agreement about getting rid of Click Fix. Because if you get rid of it, then somebody has to answer the phone.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I
Larry,
think,
I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed. Excuse me, I'm waiting on Matt to answer my question.
I gave them both scenarios. I told them what position we were in financially and that we needed to stop the service. But since we were outside the contract period, that if a suspension would be more palatable to their administration, that I would be willing to do that and we could revisit it. I understood that we were trying to save $7,500. So I was using whatever terminology I could to save us that money.
But the save $500 and actually works. That's it. That's efficient. That's the problem.
well, I think, so, I mean, yeah, Byron's point, I mean, I don't know that there was a concrete decision to just drop it. I think, Tony, to answer Tony's question, I think there was a instruction made to Matt to seek out what our options were as far as termination or otherwise. And I mean, I guess to complete your task, Matt, I mean, the only thing I'd ask is, did they give us what the definitive scenarios would be if we, if we just told them no thanks right now? I mean, I thought in the past, the issue was why we just stuck with them was because we were outside the window. The contract is the contract. There's no, there's no leave early penalty. There's the, leave early penalty is you leave early, but you pay the contract.
Right.
And I thought that's why we've been with, I thought that's why we keep perpetually being in this situation.
It is, but there is a certain population that does very much like see, click, fix, and wants to see it survive. I did exactly as what I understood the council to do, requested me to do, and that was try to save $7,500. So I communicated to see, click, fix that we were in dire financial condition. We could not afford their service. I hated to just turn the service off or to request cancellation outside of the contract terms for fear that we would be charged the fee. So if possible, could we say that we were suspending for the next calendar year and then make a decision, in time inside our contract terms for next fiscal year? And they said they would agree to that.
So we're not paying.
We're not paying.
I mean, I guess the question is, if we're not paying this upcoming year, and we still have the opportunity to get out, they're not going to send us a bill retroactively. I mean, then we've accomplished what we asked you to accomplish.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I mean, it seems to me that if they wanted to be a jerk about it, what they would say is, you signed something, you're going to pay us so that you can cancel now, but you're going to pay us the full amount, which is what they've done in the past.
Right.
Or we can lead them on and they can cut us a break, and then we can, if we decide to get rid of it, somebody who's here in 9 months needs to remember, if we want to get rid of it, we need to have that conversation then.
Well, I did exactly what Tony said last time. I put it on my calendar.
Hold on. There's a couple people talking. Tony, go ahead.
Okay, here's the conversation that I'm thinking of. If we were talking about, first of all, for them being kind right now, most companies are looking at cancellations for the pandemic, and they're not charging anybody for anything. That's across the board with most companies that I've been dealing with for the last 2 months. So that's one of the reasons probably why they said, okay, if you want to go, you can go. But the thing of it is, we have a habit of being late on contracts that I've seen. So if we're going to do this, there needs to be something concrete on our end to say that we are, and in this budget, it needs to be notated that we're going to look at this, but I don't see why we can't make that decision right now. Are we going to do it, or are we not going to do it? And if we are going to do it, we need to put it down in writing and say, this time at a certain date, we're going to do it. But playing around, telling somebody remember this, and no offense, but this is not something that we need to be remembering. This is something that needs to be notated. Time out for all of this late, getting to contracts late. That's the way I see we ought to go. So should we do it or should we not do it? We saved $7,500. Whoopee, yay. Thing now is, what are we going to do next? What's the next move? And we're here now. Everybody that's here can make that decision. will we go with it in 9 months or not?
I have a really quick question before everybody goes back and forth. I got a really quick question.
Go ahead, Fran.
I just need to know what page was that on that was the C-Click Fix was on. I want to go back to that just so I can have something to look at while you guys are going back and forth.
Page 122.
Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, can they renegotiate the price because of the pandemic?
I think we've already done that once, actually, right, Matt?
Yes, they already cut the price in half for us last year.
Because as I say, it was 14,000. Now we're paying 7,500. I think it was 14 or 15.
The problem is we're getting a deal right now, and and C-Click Fix is efficient. I get on my phone anywhere and click, click, click. I see something, click, 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 and send it off. I get a notice every day from someone reporting something.
So
we live in a smartphone world, and it's made for a smartphone.
So let me ask this question because we're dealing with right now's budget. Is there a consensus to suspend, which at this point suspend C-Click Fix and save the $7,500 to have it removed out of the budget? Let's tackle that item first. Go ahead, Matt.
But when you come back, it's gonna be 15,000.
They're going to eventually get it to be 15,000 again anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's better later than sooner.
Matt, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, sir. I was done with my report.
Is there anyone else who would like to save C-Click Fix for this budget year? I know Byron.
Yes.
I mean, I have I've said it before, and I'll lay this at the feet of the technology committee maybe for the upcoming year, but I think to Byron's point, and the points that have been made previously, this whole reason we're doing it was to try to streamline and make more efficient some of these city functions. And C-Click Fix was something that I found and brought to the city, but I'm not married to it. And frankly, there's a better product out there. There's something better to integrate into our city services. I'd love to do it, and then of course that's funding permitting. So I will say I would like to say that we try to have the technology committee and the staff look at holistically this issue next year, and then let's not. To Tony's point, we've got to find some way to let people know that when the time is right, we can either cancel it or keep going. And so how we notate that, I think the best way to notate it is to just keep having that conversation. And I think it's something to start the technology committee to start looking into. And then hopefully, by the time they're done looking at it and talking about it, and staff is, then a permanent decision can be made before that 90-day contract period comes up. Does that sound like
James, I would like to say that C-Click Fix started out as a very good effort, and it was people were using it, but what happened was then 3 or 4 people basically are the only ones who use it. And so it's 3 or 4 people driving like vigilantes, putting in all this information and up-clicking problems. And so it stopped being something that the masses were using, and it was just, like the same 4 people. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm good with not paying the money and seeing what the technology committee says about it. But to see if there's another, if there's a widget on the website that we could, use that's part of our package already that used to be there before. So I'm good with the suspending the $7,500 this year and figuring out what we need to do 90 days beforehand.
Matt, can I go ahead, Byron?
Go ahead, Byron.
Not really emphasize and stress. Ferguson West, we say it every time. It's like it's not being pushed enough. It might be the same 4 people, but other people are like, what's that? What's that? It's that. I mean, it's like every board meeting we have, every flyers have on the bottom of it, see, click, fix, everywhere. You know, if people are in the dark, they just don't know.
I think part of the problem, Byron, well, not just Byron, but I think the part of the problem, Heather, is I don't think the 4 people are a problem. If the 4 people are doing the work that we pay inspectors to do, I don't have a problem with 4 people going around and doing that. I think the problem becomes I think a lot of people were turned off by the fact that there was there's no way for us to really deal with a lot of these issues, and there's very little way for them to see that we are dealing with them as best we can. And so when people were all excited and turning stuff in, they were turning up all the streets that are tore up. Yeah, well, we know they're tore up, but we don't have money to fix them. So at some point they just stopped taking pictures of torn up streets. The same with houses that are falling down, that it takes us 3 or 4 years to get them on the demo list. People just stop taking pictures of those houses or those issues because they say it's never going to get fixed.
But those are bigger issues. Like today,
no, I agree.
Somebody on date or somewhere, but their grass is too tall, which is true. That we can't fix it all, but some things we can fix. I'm here in the past, something happened on Suburban. I called at least 4 or 5 times, and someone said no one called in. That's a bold-faced lie, because I know I called in at least 5 times or more.
I know there's a house over on Chambers I passed the other day. The grass so tall, you need to get a tractor over there to bale hay. And I mean, it's not an exaggeration. This grass is probably 3 feet tall. Somebody's not seen it, or we haven't certainly not dealt with it. So I realize that that's an issue, Linda.
So Matt, are you still on the call?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
So Matt, could you give us the real numbers so that we're not just going with what we think we know? So like, could you can you go on their dashboard and let us know how many users have used it on a monthly and yearly basis?
I don't know if I can do, I can probably see the total number of users. I probably can't tell you on a daily or a monthly basis.
Well, maybe, yeah, okay. And then didn't you also say that the idea of this was created so that we would take some of the workload off of a human being within the office? So, what are we reversing the cost of? I mean, if we save $7,500 on this, are we putting a lot more work on somebody else and now they're not doing the work they need to do? So that's a built-in cost that we need to consider.
In here.
And the other thing I would also say too is this is already built into the budget. This is in this current budget. If it is something that you chose to keep and we found out that it's being used by a variety of people more than we think, I mean, so the best way too, is there a possibility, Matt, of finding out other companies like Mayor Knoll said that offer these services and their costs before the end of this fiscal year so that we can have an idea of that, what going into the next fiscal year?
Well, that's a month and 10 days. I mean, I think it's possible. Yes, I can get you some costs and I can get you some statistics about, the users and, what type of things are going on C-Click-Fix, but I don't think you're going to find anything for $7,500.
Okay.
I mean, that's nothing. I mean, that is really a very insignificant sum for a software solution.
Okay.
Matt, do you recall what the amount was from Civic Plus for the competing product?
I don't recall, but I can make a telephone call and find that out tomorrow.
All right, any other questions? I mean, it sounds to me like we have at least a consensus that we intend to remove this $7,500 out of this year's budget. I will just say, no offense, Byron, but other than Byron, is there any other objections? Byron, your objection is duly noted.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other objections, I guess we will move forward with suspending that account for this year, removing that item from the budget, And I think it's the council's wish that we have this, have our continuation with C-Click Fix be reviewed over the next few months, and then we need to continue this conversation so that we are on top of either permanently leaving them or changing to a new vendor or sticking with them if our fortunes change and we decide that we want it.
I have placed a
No,
reminder on my calendar
this is from,
the 1st of March.
Tony, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to give Lance a word, and it is rather than suspend an account, you will sunset the account. And going into negotiations, if you were to go back and for next year than what you talked to at the plant, sunset is a better situation than suspended. And then we can talk about that. It's just legally, and it works real good if you're going to go back into an organization. If you just want to let it go, you can say suspend. Even on the website, when you say sunset, people in business understand that.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't familiar with that terminology, but I'm happy to talk to him tomorrow about if there's an option for that.
Well,
Right.
so Tony, sunsetting something still implies that you're using it, and so you would incur the cost. I mean,
No, sunset means that we're not using it, and that's what I've always seen it in, is that you're not using it, and you can return back to it with negotiation. That's how I've always done it. That's how I've always seen it. Now, if you know it's something different, then that's something that you can talk to Matt about. I just know from the way
I will talk to Matt about it. Thank you.
So, Matt, we'll talk about it.
Sure, thank you. And again, just to make sure, I do have a reminder on my calendar, the 1st of March to pop up to remind me to send an email to you guys as a conversation starter for C-Click Fix. Are we going to resume our services?
Okay.
Well, Matt, go ahead, Tony.
And just for, I mean, because of the way things are now, I like to say, suppose I drop dead, what happens then? So if we were to put that as a reminder on the budget boom, then we will all know that this is something that would have to be talked about at a certain time. People who follow the budget on a daily basis or a quarterly basis ought to be in the know, not just the person who owns that piece. That's my suggestion.
Well, I think absolutely, considering our history here, we need to make sure that maybe we have duplication of that effort as far as reminders go. But
Yes.
but I think one way to keep it from being forgotten is whether it's next month or within a couple months, let's get the technology committee and everybody talking about it. At least that way it will not be a 7-month-old or 8-month-old conversation or thought waiting for Matt's little thing to go off. So let's go ahead and try to continue that conversation, and hopefully we'll have that decided. So.
I had a
Is there
question.
anything else?
I did have a question that was not involving C-Click Fix. It was in regards to the transfers. At the beginning of the budget, it mentioned that the transfers were not going to be listed within this particular packet. And so I'm wondering, before we finalize anything without the transfers in there, like, is that going to impact our numbers? I mean,
we talked about that last time. The transfers are the last 3 pages of the budget that we got.
Gotcha. I just going back to this wordage at the beginning. Something told me to ask, but thank you for reminding me.
All right, Jeff, is there anything else we need to sew up on this?
I wanted to go through debt service if we could.
You did. That's right.
Debt service, that's correct. All right, if we can go back to that.
Octavia, if you could take it back to page, I think 419 would be our debt service. Okay, so just so you can see, we're looking at $250,000, which will be our last payment for our swap debt, which that one ends on fiscal 2021. That payment is due in September of 2021. So after that, that debt will be paid off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So the way all this is done is it's done by, so we have them by our different debt sources. So the first one is the swap debt and our last payment is for the $250,000. Then the next one it expires in 2030. And all of these all the debt is based on the amortization schedule that we have received from these lenders. So they are already pre-described as to the amounts that need to be paid per principal and interest for each item. So we have $109,000 as our payment for the energy project that we did through Bancorp. The general obligation bonds, those go through fiscal year 2033, and we are required to pay $525,800 next year in principal and interest. For the COPS Series 2012, which that's the splash at Wabash, that doesn't end until fiscal year 22. And that is $228,100 that is required for next year. For the COPS Series 2013, which is the police department building and the community center, that expires in 2035. And that is $599,800 in principal and interest. And then for the new ladder truck that we have, they haven't given us a full amortization schedule because we haven't actually drawn all the money down. So they gave us a projected amortization, or projected, excuse me, they gave us a projected debt schedule for next year of $84,000. After that, it will go up significantly because we will have all of the principal out. So after next fiscal year, it will go up significantly.
So I have a question, and it's to you and Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I remember we've talked about this many times, that the TIF in downtown Ferguson in the special business district is going to run out. And we've been trying to save the money so that we can bank that money and have it prepared to make the payments on the fire department and the police department. Am I correct so far?
It's not the fire, it's actually the
Community center?
Of the police department and the community center.
Okay, so I'm correct. I just had misquoted a building. Okay, so my other question is the capital improvement bond that we're going to pay off by 2021.
Yeah.
Is that money, can we move that kind of money that we are used to paying into those other payments? Because aren't we quickly running out of money for those other payments?
We're not quickly running out of money, but we will, because obviously the downtown TIF fund will expire in 2023. And so, and I don't remember what the fund balance is in the downtown TIF fund right now, but between that and whatever we collect in the next 3 years, you know, possibly we could roll up $1 million there. And then, yes, you are correct. And I'll draw your attention while we're on this page to the $599,800, which is the second to last line, which is entitled COP Series 2013. That's what we're talking about. And right now, we are allocating $344,000 of capital funds to pay that, and then the balance of $200 and some odd thousand is paid by downtown TIF. So yes, we could actually offset a lot of that downtown TIF dollars with this 250, but then that 250 isn't available for something else. And then,
right. Well, but until we get these things paid off, we need to figure out ways to pay them off.
Yeah, and I agree. You know, the problem with the debt is it goes out to 2013, or I'm sorry, 2033.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question. This is Fran. I wanted to go back to the transfers. When we had the audit performed, there were several recommendations for certain things to be done. And one of them mentioned a transfer from one account into the account that it was supposed to be. Is that reflected in these last 3 pages of the transfer of the budget rather?
Jeff, is that the interfund transfer cleanup that she's talking about
Yeah, I
possibly?
think it is.
Okay. So, and I think what you're talking about is what we do is on paper, we show that we're moving money from the general fund to the parks fund and from the parks fund to capital and vice versa. And so what the auditor had requested and what we're currently working on is getting all of those, we're basically zeroing all of those out. So cleaning up those interfund transfers instead of saying parks owes general $1.5 million and then general owes parks $500,000 to get that zeroed out. So that way you don't have offsetting transfers. And it's really just to clean up the books to make them easier to follow. And that is something that we have been working on getting completed. We're not all the way done, but we will have it completed before the audit starts because it is something that, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off. Finish it.
It's something that it just makes it difficult to kind of follow, especially for the auditors to get that. They have to go through and kind of balance it all out, and then they look and then they can see what the fund balance is, where if we clean it up, it makes it that much quicker for them to be able to figure out the fund balance. It's just something to clean up the books, which we are doing.
Okay, so this is based off of the last recommendations that the auditor had made.
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, Fran, it's a housekeeping measure.
Okay, so as of right now, like it wouldn't be a matter of just saying, okay, well, Parks Fund has X amount of money that needs to go into general fund, and general fund has X amount of money that needs to go, and then basically just balancing that. Like there's no way to just literally change those two numbers if you know those two things, or no?
It's a housekeeping issue within our financial software package. So we have to do journal entries and items within our financial software package in order to clean those up. And so that's what we have to do because we've just been carrying them. And so now we have to just clean them up within the software.
But you do expect them to be done before the next audit?
Absolutely.
So is there anything that we will have to revise within this budget after that's done, or
no,
are those numbers? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, they don't affect this at all. It's just, so if you look at any of the transfers that we have, like I think they're not on any of the screens with transfers, but any of the transfers we do, we say that, you know, we're transferring in from downtown TIF, transferring to COPS, $258,000 from the downtown TIF. Okay, and that is being done to help to pay off that debt service that we have for 2035 for the COPS. So we're saying that that's what we're doing, and we have it within our system, and we're transferring that money, and we're using that money to pay the bill. We just have to clean it up within our software system for our financial softwares. That's all. We just need to make it cleaner. So I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. It's basically like in your checkbook, and just really like when you get your bank statement, you go through and you check everything off and you make sure everything's there. To make sure it's just cleaning all of that up is basically the same thing. It's just cleaning it up so that way it's not messy. I don't know if that helps any.
So Lexi, it's not an audit violation, it's an audit recommendation.
Correct.
Just an audit recommendation because it makes it
cleaner.
It's like looking at see, I think about it in financial ways, and I'm trying to think of a non-financial way. Jeff, do you have a better way of explaining it? I mean, it's basically just
User friendly.
It's like cleaning out a junk drawer. You have to put everything in, like, or your silverware drawer. You put everything in the right slot, and then it's all nice and clean. Right now, it's kind of jumbled, but you put it all.
Is it like rectifying the account?
No, the account is rectified. It balances out. It balances to zero. So it truly is just, I think it's more like putting silverware in the correct slot in your silverware drawer. It's just putting everything in just making them all nice and neat, and all your forks are stacked neatly, all your knives are stacked neatly, all your spoons are stacked neatly. It's the best other kind of analogy I can use for this.
It makes it user friendly for people to just glance at and understand what's happening.
Yes, yes. For non-financial people, it's much easier to read if you don't have to stack it all up. Yes.
Yeah, like me.
Were there any other questions?
Any other questions for? Okay, sorry, I'd like to go ahead.
I was just asking if there's any other questions about the budget or about the transfers that I can maybe explain better.
No, you said that it would all be ironed out. So is that something? So if you don't see that, if the numbers show like zeroed out on the budget, it's basically internally is where this auditor is saying the changes need to be made. Basically.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Nope, no other questions.
All right. Jeff, is there anything else? Do we need to have a closed session to talk about personnel issues?
Yes, we do.
Sorry, Byron. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Pursuant to 610-021 subsections 13?
No, 1 and 3.
1 and 3. I'm sorry. Well, that's what I was thinking. 13, right? 1 and 3. Okay.
In those exemptions, it means something different.
I'm on the. So, is there another number that's going to be available for the closed session?
It is. I sent out the link to the other call in the email.
Okay, thanks so much.
Really?
So the motion by Robinette and seconded by Fry. Is that where we are?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Octavia, call the roll, please.
Councilman Fry.
Aye.
Councilwoman Griffin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Burrow.
Aye.
Councilwoman Robinette.
Aye.
Mayor Knowles.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Aye.
Councilwoman Jones.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, staff, for your time this evening. Hopefully we didn't keep you too much longer than necessary. And council, if you'll log on to the other link, and if you've got to take a break, take a quick break. Let's try to get through this quickly. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice holiday weekend.